My name is Sarah Novak. I was 23 years old and sitting in a night class at my community college when I first matched with a man on Tinder who would later murder his girlfriend with a hunting machete he had named Kindness. I did not know that part yet. I did not know any of it. All I knew was that he was attractive and charming, and that December felt like a good time to stop being alone. If you have ever talked yourself into ignoring a red flag because the person attached to it seemed worth the risk, I need you to hear this. Drop a comment below if you check someone's other social media before a first date. Keep listening because what I found changed everything. The Hunter. I want to tell you about the context of my life at that point because I think it matters more than people usually give it credit for. I was not reckless. I was not naive in the way people sometimes imply when they hear this story and look at me with that particular expression that means they are mentally cataloging the mistakes I made. I was a nursing student working toward a degree at a community college in a mid-sized city. Night classes, 3 evenings, a week-long lectures in rooms that smelled like whiteboard marker and recycled air. I was 23 and single and tired most of the time, and December had that specific quality that December has when you are single and tired, a kind of ambient pressure that is hard to describe to people who have not felt it. My friends kept telling me to try Tinder. I had resisted for a while. It felt like admitting something. Eventually, I downloaded it on a Tuesday night in early December while I was supposed to be paying attention to a lecture on pharmacology. I had already photographed my friend Jenna's notes, so I was not losing anything by being on my phone. I started swiping. Most of the profiles I went through were forgettable. Bad lighting, generic bios, the same 3 poses, recycled across 100 different faces. I had been on the app for maybe 40 minutes when I came across Ryan. His first photo was him standing in a field at what looked like late afternoon. Golden light coming from the left side of the frame. He was tall, dark hair, the kind of outdoor build that suggested he actually spent time outside rather than just posing near a plant in a studio. The second photo was him on a boat with a fishing rod lake stretching out behind him. The third was a candid shot laughing at something off camera, wearing camo and holding a machete. I did not register the machete as alarming. I want to be direct about that. He was a hunter and a fisherman, and the machete was part of the visual language of that lifestyle. A man in camo holding a blade while standing in the field was not alarming in the way it sounds when I describe it now. It fit a coherent picture of who he was presenting himself as. His bio was short. It said he hunted and fished and liked being outside more than inside. That was it. I swiped right. We matched within the same session. I sent the first message. He replied quickly. We fell into an easy conversation that lasted most of the lecture period and continued when I got home. Over the following week, we talked every day. Sometimes just a few messages, sometimes long conversations that ran late into the evening. He was funny in a dry, understated way. He asked questions and remembered the answers. When I mentioned something in passing, he would bring it up later, which is the thing that makes a person feel seen in the early stages of talking to someone new. We video chatted twice. Both times he was warm and articulate, and the connection felt real in the way that good early conversations feel real. My friends who knew I was talking to him told me to go on a date. Jenna in particular was enthusiastic about it. I wanted to take it slower. I was not sure why exactly. Maybe just caution the low-grade instinct that makes you move carefully when something feels good. I told him I wanted to keep talking for a while before meeting in person. He seemed fine with that. The Facebook page. It was Jenna who found it. She texted me a link on a Thursday night with no explanation, just the link. I was at home already in bed scrolling through my phone with the lamp on. I clicked it. It was Ryan's Facebook page. His profile photo was the same as his Tinder photo, the one in the field with the golden light. So I knew immediately that it was him. I started scrolling. About halfway down his timeline, there was a photo, a couple photo. Ryan with his arm around a woman, both of them smiling at the camera. The photo had been posted 2 months earlier. The caption said something generic about a good weekend. I went to the woman's profile. It was public. Her name was Elena. She was in her mid-20s, originally from somewhere in the Southwest, based on her older posts. She and Ryan appeared in multiple photos together going back about 8 months. The most recent post on her own page was from about 10 days ago. She did not appear to know that Ryan had a Tinder profile. Nothing on her page suggested any kind of tension or trouble in the relationship. I sat there in bed looking at my phone for a few minutes, running through what I knew. He had been talking to me every day for almost 2 weeks. He had video chatted with me. He had asked personal questions and remembered the answers. He had let me believe we were building towards something. The entire time he had been in a relationship. I texted him immediately. I was not calm about it. I sent several messages in a row, the kind of messages you send when you feel stupid and you are angry about feeling stupid. I told him I had found his Facebook. I told him I had seen Elena. I asked him what he thought he was doing. He replied within 10 seconds. Not a minute, not 30 seconds. 10 seconds. He said he had been planning to break up with her anyway. He said he had not wanted to say anything until it was done. He said he was sorry for the way it had happened. I told him it was not okay. He said he knew that. He said he liked me too much to let the situation go without explaining himself. He said he was going to end things with Elena that night. I asked how he thought she would take it. He said sometimes you just have to kill them with kindness. I remember reading that phrase. I remember the particular way it sat in my chest, not quite right, slightly off in a way I could not immediately identify. I attributed it to the existing tension of the conversation. He was trying to sound casual about something that was not casual. It was a weird thing to say, but I had already given him so much charitable interpretation by that point that I extended one more unit of it. I turned my phone face down on the nightstand and went to sleep the morning after. I woke up the next morning and checked my phone before anything else. 2 messages from Ryan, sent within a few minutes of each other, both in the early hours of the morning. The first was an image file. I opened it. It was Elena. I recognized her face from the photos on her Facebook page. In the image, her face was partially obscured and her head was at an angle that made no sense for a person standing or sitting normally. There was blood, a significant amount, on her face and on the surface beneath her and on what appeared to be the wall behind her. I stared at the image for a long moment. My brain kept trying to process it as something else, a makeup effect, a costume, a still from a film. It kept trying to find a version of what I was seeing that did not mean what it clearly meant. The second message was one word: done. I sat on the edge of my bed with my phone in both hands and my breathing very loud in the quiet room. My roommate was still asleep. The apartment was completely still. I called Jenna. She answered on the 3rd ring. I told her to come over. I told her it was urgent. She asked if I was okay. I said I did not know. When she arrived, I showed her the messages. She looked at the image for a moment, and then she looked at me, and then she called 911. The police came within 20 minutes. They took my phone. They took a statement. They were very calm and deliberate in the way people are trained to be calm and deliberate when the situation they are stepping into is not calm at all. Elena was already dead by then. She'd been killed the previous night. The weapon was a hunting machete. Ryan had used it on her in the apartment they shared. He had taken a photo of what he had done and sent it to me as proof of completion, the way someone might send a photo of a completed task to a colleague. I did not know until the investigation that the machete had a name. Ryan called it kindness. He had told me the night before, without knowing I would understand it, that he was going to kill his girlfriend with kindness. I had heard the phrase as an expression. He had meant it as a literal statement of intent. Ryan was arrested the following day. The evidence against him was extensive. The image he had sent me was part of it. I gave a full statement to the detective assigned to the case twice, and later testified at the preliminary hearing. He was charged with first-degree murder. What came after? I want to tell you what the months after that looked like, because most people who hear this story hear the dramatic center of it and then assume that the ending resolves into something clean, a conviction, a sentence closure of some kind. The legal conclusion arrived. Ryan was convicted. He is in prison. Those things are true. But the months between the morning I sat on the edge of my bed with that image on my phone and the moment the verdict was read were some of the hardest of my life. Not in a way that showed on the outside particularly. I kept going to class. I kept doing my coursework. I kept showing up to the part-time hospital placement that was part of my nursing program. But I was not sleeping well. I was not eating the way I normally did. I was hyper-aware of my phone of notifications of incoming messages from numbers I did not recognize. I developed a specific anxiety response to the sound of a phone buzzing on a hard surface that I still have not entirely resolved. I went to counseling starting about 6 weeks after everything happened. My therapist was experienced with trauma responses, and she was direct and practical in a way I found useful. She did not try to reframe what had happened into something manageable. She treated it as the serious thing it was and helped me develop specific tools for navigating the aftermath. One of the things we talked about a lot was the phrase, "kill them with kindness." The way I had heard it and the way he had meant it. The therapist made a specific point that I have thought about many times since. She said that the red flags we miss in new relationships are almost never invisible. They are present and visible. What makes them easy to miss is not their absence, but the context we have already built around the person presenting them. By the time Ryan said that phrase to me, I had already built 2 weeks of positive context around him. Funny, warm, attentive, outdoorsy, straightforward. The phrase entered that context and was absorbed by it and given a charitable interpretation before I had a chance to hear it clearly. She said the phrase itself was not ambiguous. The way you heard it was shaped by what you already believed about him. I have thought about that a lot. The way existing belief shapes perception. The way a person who seems right in every other way gets the benefit of every doubt, even doubts that probably should not have benefited him. Elena grew up in Arizona. She had a younger brother and an older sister. She had been in Ryan City for about 8 months by the time she died. She'd been working a retail job and saving money and had been planning to apply to nursing school actually, which I found out later and which I have not quite known what to do with emotionally. She was 24 years old. I think about her more than I think about Ryan. I think about the sequence of evenings that October and November when Ryan was on Tinder talking to me and whatever other women he was talking to, while Elena thought she was in a relationship and was presumably building her own expectations for the future. She did not know about the Tinder profile. The people who knew Ryan knew about her. The people who knew her had no idea about the profile. The gap between those two circles of knowledge is where everything that happened was able to happen. The things I check, now I want to be straightforward about what I do differently now. Not because I think I caused what happened by not doing them before. I did not cause what happened. Ryan killed Elena. That is the complete sentence, and there are no additional clauses. But there are things I do now that I did not do then, and I think they are worth saying plainly. I reverse image search profile photos before I engage with anyone on a dating app. It takes 30 seconds. You right-click the photo or screenshot it and drop it into Google Images, and in most cases you find out very quickly whether the photo is authentic. A stolen or stock photo comes up attached to other accounts or other websites. A real photo from a real person usually does not. I cross-check names against other platforms early in conversations. Not obsessively, just a quick search. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Real people leave traces across multiple platforms, And those traces tell you whether the person you are talking to is who they say they are. They also tell you things the person may not have thought to mention or actively chose not to mention. I do not share my address with anyone I have not met in person, not to check drive times, not for any reason. If a first meeting requires logistics, I give an intersection, a neighborhood, a landmark, not a door number. I tell someone when I am going on a first date and I check in with them afterward. Not as a security protocol with a formal structure, just a text saying I am on my way there and a text when I am home. Someone knows where I was and who I was with. These things are all simple. They all take a small amount of time, and none of them would feel urgent or important if you had not been in a situation that showed you why they matter. The phrase that I have never been able to stop hearing is the one he said to me on that Thursday night. The sentence about what he was going to do to Elena. I heard it as a cliche and let it pass. He sent it to me as a message so specific in its meaning that the only way I missed it was by not letting myself read it at face value. I think about that one sentence every time I hear something from a new person that sits wrong for a moment before I explain it away. I think about the moment of discomfort before the charitable interpretation. I think about the space between those two things. I think about letting myself stay in the discomfort a little longer before I reach for the explanation. Elena's Facebook page is still active. I have checked it a few times over the years. Her family has not taken it down. The last post is still from 10 days before she died. A photo of a sunset somewhere, a short caption, a handful of likes from friends. It just sits there in the timeline the way things on the internet sit after the person who made them is gone, permanent and ordinary, and completely removed from what happened next. I became a nurse. I finished the degree and passed the boards, and I work in an ICU now, which was where I always wanted to end up. It is difficult work, but I am good at it, and it means something to me. I do not use Tinder anymore. I tried it again for a few months about 2 years after everything happened, and I could not get past the first few swipes without a specific physical response that I have learned to respect rather than override. There are other ways to meet people. I have used some of them, but every once in a while a man says something, and before the charitable interpretation arrives, there is a fraction of a second where I just hear it clearly. Just the words, no context, no 2 weeks of warm conversation attached to them. In that fraction of a second, I let myself hear whatever it is, and then I decide what to do with it. That is the only thing I know how to tell people. That fraction of a second before you reach for the explanation. It is small and it passes quickly and it feels like nothing, but it is the moment where everything that comes after is still changeable. Do not rush past it.